before Israel had kings, before David wore a crown, there was a time when an entire nation kept falling into the same darkness. They had seen deliverance. They had inherited the land of promise. They carried the memory of a God who split seas, shattered chains, and led them through the wilderness. Yet in the book of Judges, something terrifying begins to happen. The people who were rescued start forgetting the rescuer. Again and again, Israel turns away. Again and again, enemies rise. Again and again, the people cry out. And again, God raises a judge, a deliverer, a broken human being placed in the middle of a broken nation. Othniel, Ehud, Deborah, Gideon, Jephthah, Samson, each one brings rescue. But none of them can end the cycle. So the real question is not simply, who were the judges of Israel? The deeper question is this: why could they save Israel from its enemies, but not from itself? The book of Judges begins in a strange silence. Joshua is gone. The great generation that saw the conquest of Canaan is fading from memory. The land that was supposed to become a place of covenant faithfulness now feels unfinished, divided, and spiritually fragile. Israel has no king, no central throne, and no single human ruler holding the tribes together. What they have is a calling, a covenant, and a memory. But memory, when it is not guarded, can disappear. This is the world of the judges. And the word judge can mislead modern listeners. These were not courtroom officials in robes, sitting behind benches and deciding legal cases. In the biblical world, a judge could be a leader, a rescuer, a military deliverer, a wise counselor, or a person raised up by God in a moment of national crisis. Some judged with wisdom, some fought with courage, some were deeply flawed. But all of them appeared because Israel had entered the same terrible pattern. First, the people did evil in the sight of the Lord. They turned toward the gods of the surrounding nations, absorbing the worship, values, and fears of Canaan. Then oppression came. Foreign powers pressed against them. Their freedom narrowed. Their villages trembled. Their peace collapsed. Then, when the suffering became too heavy, Israel cried out to God. And in mercy, God raised up a judge to deliver them. For a time the land rested. The people breathed again. The danger seemed over. But then the cycle returned. That is what makes Judges so haunting. The tragedy is not that Israel fell once. The tragedy is that Israel learned how to fall in a circle. Rescue came, but healing did not last. Freedom returned, but faithfulness faded. The enemy outside the gates could be defeated, yet something inside the heart of the nation remained unchanged. This is why the book still feels disturbingly close to us. It is not only an ancient record of tribal wars and forgotten leaders. It is a mirror. How many people have promised to change after a crisis, only to drift back when life becomes comfortable again? How many have prayed in the dark, then forgotten the prayer when morning came? How often does the human heart ask to be saved from consequences, while still clinging to the very thing that created them? The judges of Israel must be understood inside this tension. They are signs of mercy, because God hears the cry of His people. But they are also signs of warning, because every deliverance exposes a deeper wound. Othniel will show us the pattern in its earliest form. Ehud will reveal the unexpected ways God can act. Deborah will stand as wisdom in an age of fear. Gideon will show that even the called can tremble. And by the time we reach Samson, the strongest man in the story may become its most tragic warning. Before the darkness deepens, the first deliverers step into history like sudden burning flames. The first judge rises in a world where the pattern is still clear enough to recognize. His name is Othniel. He does not arrive with the strange tragedy of Samson or the emotional complexity of Gideon. Othniel feels almost like the original shape of deliverance. Israel sins, oppression comes, the people cry out, and the Spirit of the Lord empowers a rescuer. Through him, Israel is delivered, and the land has rest. His story is brief, but that brevity matters. It shows us what the cycle looked like before the shadows grew longer. There is sin, there is suffering, there is mercy, and there is peace, but peace does not hold forever. After Othniel comes Ehud, one of the most unexpected figures in the book of Judges. Israel is oppressed by Moab, and the deliverer God raises is not the kind of hero people might imagine. Ehud is remembered as left-handed, a detail that may seem small, but in the story it becomes important. He is not introduced as a king, a priest, or a famous warrior. He comes from the margins of expectation, and that is part of the point. In Judges, God often works through people nobody would have chosen first. Ehud's story is intense, dramatic, and unsettling, but beneath its sharp edges is a deeper truth. Israel's survival does not depend on human prestige. Deliverance can come through a hidden hand, an unlikely person, a path no one saw coming. After Ehud, the land rests again. Another rescue, another breath, another temporary silence after the storm. Then comes Shamgar, almost like a flash of lightning. His story is only a verse long. He strikes down Philistines and saves Israel, then disappears from the page. No long speech, no detailed background, no emotional portrait, just one sudden reminder that even in a fractured age, God can preserve his people through a moment, a weapon, a person, a name almost swallowed by history. But the next major light in Judges is Deborah. Deborah is unlike anyone before her. She is a prophetess, a judge, and a leader whose wisdom draws Israel beneath her palm tree. In a time when courage is scarce, she becomes a voice of clarity. Barak is called to battle, but he hesitates unless Deborah goes with him. Her presence reveals something powerful. In a collapsing society, spiritual courage may appear where people least expect it. The story of Deborah and Barak is not only about military victory. It is about leadership, trust, obedience, and the way God's deliverance can move through wisdom as much as through strength. The Song of Deborah turns victory into memory, because Israel's problem has always been forgetfulness. They do not simply need to win battles, they need to remember who delivered them. And yet, even after Othniel, Ehud, Shamgar, and Deborah, the question grows heavier. If God keeps rescuing Israel, why does Israel keep returning to the edge of ruin? The early Judges give us hope, but they also prepare us for something darker, because soon, the deliverer himself will begin to reflect the cracks inside the people he was sent to save. Then comes Gideon, and the book of Judges begins to change shape. Until now, the cycle has been tragic, but still almost orderly. Israel sins, oppression comes, the people cry out, and God raises a deliverer. But with Gideon, the story slows down and becomes more personal. We are no longer only watching a nation in crisis. We are watching fear inside the soul of the man called to rescue it. When Gideon first appears, he is not standing boldly on a battlefield. He is hiding. Israel is crushed under Midian, and the people are so afraid that they shelter in caves and mountain strongholds. Their crops are destroyed. Their security is gone. Their future feels stolen before it can grow. And in that atmosphere of fear, Gideon is found threshing wheat in a hidden place, trying to survive without being seen. Then the angel of the Lord addresses him with a title that seems almost impossible: Mighty Warrior. The words sound less like a description of what Gideon is, and more like a revelation of what God can make from him. Gideon does not respond with confidence. He questions. He doubts. He asks why all this has happened if the Lord is with Israel. His heart carries the confusion of a people who remember stories of past miracles but cannot see deliverance in the present darkness. This is why Gideon is so human. He is called but afraid, chosen but uncertain, invited into courage but still asking for signs, and God does not wait for him to become fearless before using him. That is one of the great mysteries of Judges. Divine mercy often moves through trembling people. The battle against Midian makes the lesson unmistakable. Gideon's army is reduced until no one can mistake the victory for human strength. Israel will not be saved by numbers, strategy, or pride. They will be saved because God acts. The torches, the jars, the sound in the night, the whole scene feels like a message written in fire. Deliverance belongs to the Lord. But Gideon's story does not end with simple triumph. After victory, the shadows return in a quieter form. Israel wants to make Gideon a ruler, but he refuses the title while still leaving behind an object that becomes spiritually dangerous for the people. The man who began in fear and was lifted by grace now leaves a complicated legacy. The deliverer has delivered Israel, but he has not healed Israel, and perhaps he has not fully healed himself. After Gideon come Tola and Jair, quieter judges, names that pass quickly across the page. They remind us that history is not only made of dramatic battles. Sometimes leadership looks like years of stability, local order, and peace that does not draw attention. Yet even these quieter seasons cannot break the cycle. By now, the question has changed. Israel does not merely need another rescuer. Israel needs something deeper than rescue. Because if even the deliverer can carry the cracks of the age within himself, then who can truly heal the nation? The answer becomes more painful as the story moves toward Jephthah, where victory and tragedy begin to stand dangerously close together. By the time Jephthah enters the story, the world of Judges feels darker. The early pattern is still there, but something has changed. The stories no longer feel like simple rescues from outside enemies. They begin to feel like windows into a society wounded from within. Israel is still crying out for deliverance, but the people who rise to lead them now carry scars that mirror the brokenness of the nation itself. Jephthah is introduced as a mighty warrior, but also as a rejected son. His own family pushes him away. His community does not honor him until they need him. This makes his story painfully human. He is not just a fighter. He is a man shaped by exclusion, called back by the same people who once cast him out. Before he ever faces Israel's enemies, he has already faced the loneliness of being unwanted. That is what makes Jephthah so compelling and so tragic. He becomes a deliverer, but he is not a healed man. He knows how to fight. He knows how to negotiate. He knows how to survive on the edge of society. But survival is not the same as wholeness. A person can win battles and still carry wounds that shape every decision. Jephthah's conflict with the Ammonites shows his courage and his knowledge of Israel's story. He remembers the journey of the people through the wilderness. He understands that the land is not merely territory, but inheritance. Yet the most haunting part of his story comes through a vow, a moment where victory becomes tangled with sorrow. Across Christian and Jewish interpretation, readers have wrestled with this scene for centuries. But whatever position one takes, the emotional weight is clear. In the age of Judges, even religious language can become dangerous when wisdom is thin and desperation is deep. This is not a story to treat lightly. It is not meant to shock for entertainment. It is meant to make us tremble. Jephthah shows what can happen when a society still speaks about God, but no longer fully understands the heart of God. Zeal without wisdom can wound. Victory without discernment can leave grief behind. And a wounded leader can become both the instrument of rescue and the carrier of tragedy. After Jephthah, the book gives us Ibzan, Elon, and Abdon. Their stories are brief, almost quiet. They judge Israel for a time, then pass away. Their names feel like stones along a road between storms. They remind us that not every leader is remembered for a dramatic battle. Some represent pauses, transitions, moments of temporary order. But temporary order is not the same as transformation. The cycle still waits beneath the surface. And that is the terrifying movement of Judges. The problem is growing deeper. Israel has been rescued by brave men, unlikely men, wise women, fearful men, and wounded men. Yet the heart of the nation remains unstable. If Jephthah reveals the cost of a wounded soul, the final great judge will reveal something even more unsettling. A man can possess extraordinary strength and still be unable to master himself. Samson is the final great figure in the book of Judges, and his story feels like the cycle reaching its most tragic form. He is not introduced as an ordinary deliverer who rises suddenly in a moment of crisis. His life begins with promise before he is even born. His birth is announced. His calling is marked. He is set apart as a Nazirite, a sign that his life is meant to belong to God in a special way. From the beginning, Samson carries destiny. And yet, destiny does not mean maturity. Samson has strength almost beyond imagination, but his soul is restless. He can tear through enemies, break bonds, and strike fear into the Philistines. But he cannot seem to rule his own desires. This is the great tragedy of his life. The strongest judge is also one of the most internally divided. He has power in his hands, but war inside his heart. That is why Samson must not be reduced to a simple action hero. His story is not only about strength, it is about calling without discipline, power without wisdom, and a man chosen by God who keeps walking toward the things that weaken him. In Samson, the book of Judges shows us something deeply human. A person can be gifted, chosen, and powerful, yet still be dangerously unfree. His battles against the Philistines bring moments of deliverance, but they are surrounded by impulsive choices, personal conflict, and loneliness. Again and again, Samson seems to move through life like a man pulled between divine purpose and personal appetite. He is fighting Israel's enemies, but he is also fighting himself. And in the end, the outer conflict and inner conflict collapse into one final scene of darkness, weakness, prayer, and judgment. Even there, Samson cries out to God. Even there, mercy and mystery remain. His final act strikes the Philistines with devastating force, but it does not feel like a clean victory. It feels like a warning carved into history. Israel has reached the point where deliverance itself has become wrapped in sorrow. The judge saves, but the judge also suffers. The enemy falls, but the cycle is not healed. When we look back across the judges, the pattern becomes clear. Othniel shows the first shape of rescue. Ehud reveals that God can work through the unexpected. Shamgar flashes briefly like a name rescued from silence. Deborah stands as wisdom and courage in a fearful age. Gideon shows that God can call the trembling, but also that victory can leave new dangers behind. Tola and Jair remind us of quiet seasons that still cannot cure the nation. Jephthah reveals the pain of a wounded age. Ibzan, Elon, and Abdon pass like brief pauses before the final storm. And Samson becomes the last great warning. Israel does not merely need stronger deliverers. Israel needs a deeper salvation. That is the message of Judges. The judges could rescue Israel from enemies, but they could not heal the cycle inside Israel's heart. Again and again, the people were saved from danger, yet not fully changed by deliverance. And perhaps that is why this ancient book still feels so close to us. Because every human heart knows what it means to escape trouble, only to discover that the deeper battle is still within. The tragedy of Judges is not only that Israel fell into darkness, it is that they kept mistaking rescue for healing. And when everyone does what is right in their own eyes, even freedom can become a wilderness. So the question remains, not only for ancient Israel, but for us. What cycle are we asking God to rescue us from? And what deeper healing are we still afraid to receive? Which judge of Israel do you think reveals the deepest truth about human nature? Gideon, Jephthah, Samson, or someone else? Share your thoughts below.